Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Hoddan. I'm joined today by Ramona Snow, Egbert Alejandro Martina, and Patricia Schoor to discuss the ruling that an Amsterdam court made on Zwarte Piet, the blackface figure that is part of the Christmas tradition here in the Netherlands. The courts ruled last Thursday that the permit that was given to the big parade that happens in the city every year should not have been given the way that it was by the mayor of the city. The judges ruled that there wasn't enough attention paid to the negative impact that this parade and the blackface figure could have on black plaintiffs that took the case to court. That protested against the permit, and by extension, a negative impact on black residents of the city. So the judgment or the ruling was based on Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which says that everybody has a right to respect to a private life, which is the reason why the judge found that the mayor, basically, they found that there wasn't enough attention paid to that right. So this is a sort of big moment in the public debate on Zwarte Piet, and this is an occasion for us to talk about what this ruling might mean, the ruling itself. What does it mean? What were the basis upon which the ruling was made? And also, what might it mean for the continued struggle against this racist blackface figure in the Netherlands, in the public space of the Netherlands? So we're going to talk about that in the next about 20 to 30 minutes with these wonderful people. Just a question for everybody. What did you guys think when you heard the ruling, when you heard about this decision that was made? And yeah, at first and also now a couple of days later. Maybe starting with you, Ramona?
Okay. So I couldn't attend the court case, which was disappointing for me. So I heard about it through Facebook because people posted, yeah, we won. So I was like happy. I was like, apparently we won something. That's a good thing. And then someone posted the verdict because it was online. So I looked at it, like, what did we exactly win then? And to be honest, I was disappointed quite soon after that, thinking, okay, so it's about a lot of stuff about feelings and people getting hurt, and nothing about structural racism. So that was the first thing that kind of went through me.
Yeah.
And I felt kind of bad about it because everybody was so happy. So I felt like, oh, I don't want to be the one who's like, oh, but what? I have a reputation for being, I think, sometimes. So I just quietly asked Egbert privately, like, okay, am I the only one here? Yeah.
Yeah. Patricia, I think you were at the court when the ruling was delivered, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
What can you tell us about the atmosphere and what went through you when what were your first reactions when you heard the ruling?
Mm-hmm. Well, I went there to support people, and I was following the case closely because I was one of the persons who started the procedure, and I went there without any expectation at all. I thought we are going to lose it, just on all accounts.
Yeah,
So,
and can you explain maybe for the people who haven't followed it as closely, very briefly, what that procedure was? Because it's not a court case against Zwarte Piet per se. It's against the permit that was given for the parade, right?
indeed. The case is against the fact that the mayor of Amsterdam granted a permit to the Sinterklaas parade, which hosts hundreds of blackface, of Zwarte Piets. So and the first, so it's a this is an administrative court case, so it's a bit complicated. It's not very much about the issue whether this is an act of racism or not. It is about, according to the procedures of that are should be followed for granting a permit. Was this okay? But of course, people argued, apart from all the issues that must be checked before granting a permit, there is the question of racism within this caricature, which is just overwhelming, and it's also directed to children. But so we started a case. 21 persons started this case, and this case was we lost. It was overruled because the only thing that was actually how do you say checked was if the parade was going to disturb public order. This is the main issue, the main parameter for granting a permit. So this wasn't the case, then it was okay. But people just went on with the procedure, and this, I think, happened twice.
Yeah.
So this was another instance of the appeal. And in this, so, well, of course, we are just very used to the denial of racism in this country, and of the fact that that the legal system doesn't protect minorities or black people in particular. So I didn't expect anything at all. And we were there. So the decision was communicated in 15 minutes. It was short. And they started going on about the fact that everything that we argued for was ungrounded. So, but then finally the judges communicated that the permit goes against Article 8 of the United Nations Convention. So this is the one you mentioned on the right for private life. I was extremely happy. Everybody there was like, what is going on? Did we win? Did we lose? What does it mean? But we understood that the mayor of Amsterdam will have to pay for the costs of the court case, and that he will have to explain why he granted the permit without considering the rights of the black citizens of Amsterdam. So this was received with happiness, and people were cheering and hugging each other, and were happy. Yeah, I was elated at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for explaining as well what the background is of this complicated court case. Egbert, what did you think of the ruling in the first instance? Because we'll go into the background later on.
In the first instance, I was confused because I read about it on a news website, and I really didn't know what the ruling actually meant, because this is about a permit that was given last year. And in the report, it said that the mayor had to go and review a decision he had already made that was in the past. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know whether it had any bearings on the coming parade this year, or whether... So I was confused. And I didn't feel... I wasn't too sure what to expect until I read the ruling itself. And like Ramona, I then didn't see any cause for celebration because of the way it was framed. Um, yeah, to put it put it shortly, or to put it briefly, I was just confused.
Patricia, what do you think? Why do you think that? Because okay, let me just say this: the plaintiffs, the group of activists that brought this case to court, that appealed against the granting of the permit, protested against it. They brought several types of arguments forward against the permit, against the reason, sort of protesting against blackface in the parade. And the judges chose Article 8 as a grounds for this ruling. Why do you think that all the other, because you said that all the other arguments were dismissed, but Article 8 was accepted. Why do you think that was?
I think because it fits within a pattern of understanding racism as a matter of the hurt feelings on the private person that receives, that is in the receiving end of racism.
Yeah.
So it is a way to continue denying the fact of structural racism in the Netherlands, and it's a way of not assuming responsibility as a collectivity and as an institution, the government as a big institution, so the educational system. So in this way, it is it's a way it's something that fits within a particular framework of understanding what is racism and what is not racism.
Yeah. If I can just briefly summarize the argument that the court actually gave, or the reasoning of the court for this ruling. So they say that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't there, so this is just based on a sort of like a short video by Amsterdam Public TV, local TV AT5. So the judge who delivered the ruling says that Zwarte Piet is a negative stereotype, and that it could have a negative impact on black people's self-esteem, and that if that negative impact is serious enough, it could have a negative impact on people's private lives. So there are several steps there that she makes. And then the mayor did not take that possible impact on people's private lives into account enough, at least, and that's why. And he should have gone beyond just looking at public safety and public security. He should have looked at people's rights in that regard. He should have taken Article 8 into account, and that's why she basically annulled his decision and is forcing him to go back and review his decision. And that could lead to, and actually she did say that doesn't mean that the permit should not have been granted, but perhaps there could have been sort of like conditionality should have been added. She basically leaves it up to him what he does in that process. But that's the way that she explained Article 8 and explained their reasoning to take Article 8 into account. So Ramona, you also, in your first reactions on Twitter, you also mentioned that racism is reduced to a private matter. Can you explain that?
Well, just as Patricia just said, I think in the Netherlands and probably in several other places in the world as well, people make racism into something that is only about two people apparently having a conversation, and then one can be racist to another or not, and then that's it. It's like a really individualistic view of racism, instead of seeing it as what it is, a structure in society that marginalizes, and in this case with Zwarte Piet and stuff, it's anti-black, so it's anti-black racism. It marginalizes black people. But the ruling pretends that it's something that is like black people can be hurt about because of Zwarte Piet, and as well as the white people that also sued for all of this, that they are not allowed. So in the verdict, it's about that they cannot, because in their private life, since they're white, there is no racism. Again, like racism makes sure that certain people are marginalized, but other people are profiting from this. But they're completely ignoring this and just stating that it's something for black people only who are like hurt all the time, apparently. Yeah, that made me kind of mad, actually, that again in this court it was minimalized and reduced to this feelings thing, which is what happens all the time. And I'm continuously battling people saying, okay, you just shouldn't be hurt. Yeah, I'm not talking about being hurt. To be honest, like I'm not really hurt. Me, when I see Zwarte Piet, it's not like, oh my god, like I can't go out anymore. But I do think it's racist. I do see how it fits into the structure of racism, and that should not be allowed in the Netherlands. It's not about me being hurt. It has nothing to do with, I mean, if I cry or not has nothing to do with the fact that it's racist. But that's the way it's framed. And I mean, I can understand that people are happy that like something is happening and that they have the feeling, which is true, like that someone is kind of listening. I'm just worried about the way it's framed to this private matter, private life, blah, blah, blah. And not taking into account society as a whole.
Egbert, you said that. How do you see the fact that the white plaintiffs were actually dismissed? Basically their case was completely dismissed, and the judge actually says that plaintiffs 8 until 20, because they were like, I think. I thought that was so ridiculous. But she actually says that plaintiffs 8 until 20s, their sort of case is accepted and it's taken into account, and then this other group of plaintiffs 1 until 7 or something, 1 to 7 are completely dismissed because they're white, and therefore their Zwarte Piet cannot have an impact on their private lives. What does that tell you about the way that race is seen and racism sort of is framed in that ruling, and also outside of that ruling and public debate?
Can I say something about the way it is phrased, Zwarte Piet being a negative stereotype?
Yes, sure.
Because to me, it's not only a negative stereotype. The reason why Zwarte Piet is bad is, just like Ramona just said, I'm not personally hurt by it, but it's bad because it dehumanizes black people. So the reason why I'm against Zwarte Piet is because it's dehumanizing. And in the ruling, you know, like you said earlier, there were a lot of steps that the court took in order to establish the degree of severity. So in the ruling, it states that not all negative stereotypes lead to an infringement of privacy. So the effects of negative stereotyping need to be determined. So in order to really comprehend the severity of blackface, we need to reflect on it, you know, on what it actually is, rather than what the court makes it out to be. So if we change that around and phrase it, you know, by saying, not all acts of dehumanization lead to an infringement of one's humanity, you know, it clearly exposes the ridiculous tenor of the court statement. So I really wanted to say that out loud because I had a lot of issue with the way it was framed. And as regards to the white plaintiffs, they are basically, you know, taken out of the equation. So, like Ramona said, obviously this negative stereotype does not affect them. But if we look at it as an act of dehumanization, then of course, yes, white people can also speak out against it. But the way that it's phrased in the ruling, it's like, well, these white people are coming to the defense of black people, which frames white people or attributes white people a certain role, like, you know, they're there to save black people or show pity, um, or a sense of duty, that they're acting out of a sense of duty towards black people.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't give people the impression that racism affects white people too, because, you know, it makes them do all sorts of weird things.
And actually, when one of the things that's interesting is that in the ruling, the court says that the mayor should have weighed the interest of black people more carefully against the interest of society, the interest that society has in this celebration, in this parade, in the form that it has now. So there again, black people are sort of taken outside of society and sort of placed outside of society with their hurt feelings. Like, there's a group of people outside of society, and they have these feelings, and they can be hurt. So you should really take that into account. Ramona, are you? Patricia, are you okay?
Yes.
Had a coughing fit. I could see. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think that this ruling means in the public debate? No, wait. For that question, I'll ask a question. Another question: How has the ruling been received in media by the sort of mainstream media?
Well, I think first of all, with dismissal and aggression.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was a lot in the mainstream media. So you have different you have nuances in the mainstream media. You have the more right-wing and a little bit less right-wing, which self-defined, which defines itself as left-wing. So I was surprised to see yesterday the editorial of the NRC, which is seen as, which is taken as the most authoritative newspaper, which was in favor of the court ruling.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is a very important fact in the debate, in the public debate here, and it raises the issue of morality, which is an issue that has been avoided in the public debate. So there's a lot of repercussion. So the repercussion, if you are in the Netherlands, is just overwhelming. It's in the front page of every newspaper. It's on television. It's everywhere in social media. But of course, what happens along the debate and as days pass by is that there's a lot of appropriation of the discourse of people of color and black people, of a transformation of that discourse, and this makes the kind of new wise rhetoric of the mainstream media, of the authoritative media, and it conveys also an idea of self-sufficiency, that the white Dutch, they got to their senses because they just thought well about it, not because there has been an incredible amount of protest and a dissent. So this is one thing. The other thing is that this ruling, because of the way it is framed, of what we've been discussing here, it is again constructed as an act of benevolence of white people towards black people. So this is a bit of the other side of the dynamics of morality in the public debate, and this is also very much the heritage of Dutch colonialism. You know, we are going to relieve these people from the burden that they have privately. We are not perpetrators of that dynamic. We are saviors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I add something to that? Because I also read the piece in NRC, and it is really, to me, it was really stunning again that people were really happy with it, because it is talking again about feelings, and it's really about, okay, but now, like, suddenly we Dutch white people, or like, I mean, it doesn't say that, but it's kind of like, hey, we Dutch, or we Dutch white people are now like being really good to all of these black people, right? And I was like, that it just says that in a newspaper. It said in a newspaper. I mean, that you're gonna be all like, where suddenly you're like, it's like the age of reason or something. What's going on? It is colonialism, like she said again. Like, seriously telling me now, okay, like, I'm gonna save you. So first you create this system of racism, and now you're gonna save me every time. Out of what? How can you? And you put that in the newspaper, and then people are like really happy that some white dude is saying that they're gonna be saved. I mean, come on, like, I can't grasp how this framing is. But it's. I mean, I can see that it's been done eloquently. So therefore.
But they are good at that, though.
Yeah. No, but I thought, to be honest, that it hurts me. That actually hurts me. Here, now you can have feelings. That hurts me more. I'd rather have people just be racist in my face, and then we just all know. And like the system, I know the system, so that's fine. Than telling me all about this bullshit stuff about, like, yeah, I'm gonna save you from the system. You created the fucking system, and now you're gonna save me without even acknowledging the system? How does that work? That's unbelievable. Really unbelievable. Sorry, I had to.
No,
Don't apologize. Yeah. Egbert.
I just want to say that I find it curious. Well, yeah, I find it curious that there is so much attention being paid to Zwarte Piet, because the UN Working Group, they said that there is structural racism in the Netherlands. So there's racism in the labor market. There's racism. There's racism in the educational system, but you know, those facts cannot be attributed to feelings that black people have, because they are backed by numbers. So this thing around Zwarte Piet, they make it a lot about feelings, because it is something that you can debate, discuss, you can haggle about it, you know, you can dialogue, because, you know.
And it's also something that you can give in on, because then it's like, the form of redress is very easy, you know. You can reform the figure, or maybe even completely take the figure out of the equation, and then you can use that as a way to say, you know, look, we're not really racist because we're taking your feelings into account and we're looking for solutions, whereas addressing structural racism and all these other fields of life that you talked about, that's going to actually take a lot more work.
And they're doing it themselves in this. I've seen people, and not one, not two, but a lot of people actually saying without any sense of shame, like, yeah, we also abolished slavery, so us white people now need to get away with Zwarte Piet. And I'm like, are you, like,
wow.
Yeah, no, I think, and then actually, people apparently are kind of happy with that. Like, okay, now this person has seen light. You cannot tell me that you've seen the light if you say stuff like that. That is,
But I think that another very concerning thing is that this ruling will legitimize the private, secretive conversations that the mayor of Amsterdam is having with a couple of people and God knows who, to come to a compromise about Zwarte Piet. So at
Yeah.
a certain moment, well, we've been discussing Zwarte Piet with schools in Amsterdam for 3 years now. They didn't want to change absolutely anything, and what they're saying now is that we are waiting. So we've seen the court a decision. We are waiting to get guidelines from the mayor. So these people, black people amongst them, are going to be used to legitimize some compromise that the mainstream is proposing. So this court case feeds into this process. So this is extremely disturbing. That there's a secretive conversation about that. Apparently, getting together both sides of this equation. Who are the both sides of this equation? People that counter racism and people that want to uphold it. So, what are seen as two sides is black people and white people. So this is how this ruling fits within a particular moment in the country, but which is a moment that replicates, colonial dynamics again.
And I was thinking also when reading the whole verdict and stuff, like Article 1, saying that nobody should be discriminated against and everybody should be treated equally. How that framing of the law itself makes sure that because it's the law also pretends that it's about some individualistic thing and it's not about something structural. So you can't even battle racism because the law doesn't even recognize structural inequalities and stuff. So how can you battle it if the law doesn't? It's not strange that this is all happening right now, like with this court case and blah blah, because the law doesn't recognize it. So the only thing in the law you can do if you want to oppose it is use that law, and that law is actually talking about feelings and blah 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 and equal treatment. Nobody even knows what that exactly means. So therefore people obviously are doing this case with these arguments because they have no other choice than to do it like this, and then afterwards people can say, yeah, justice has been spoken. Well, the law in itself is not fair is a kind of a weird word, but it's not fair, it's not okay, it's racist and sexist and all of that. It doesn't want to take into account any structural inequality at all.
Yeah. I just want to add to that the concept of equal treatment itself, it hides the specificity of the positionality of black people in the Netherlands. So what I found puzzling again was that despite the fact that the court acknowledged that Zwarte Piet affects black people personally in such a way that it does not affect white people, it still reasoned from this faulty premise that we all inhabit the same 0 point in society. So on the one hand, the judge says, or the court says, that white people can't appeal to Article 8 because they're not personally affected by it, saying that only black people are personally affected by this negative stereotype, while saying that we all inhabit the same 0 point. So the fundamental assumption on which this equal treatment law is based, needs that. So this assumption clearly, doesn't hold any water, especially in light of what I mentioned earlier, about structural discrimination in the labor market, racial profiling. So certain things affect black people or people of color in the Netherlands that don't affect white people.
Patricia, given sort of the problematic grounds upon which this ruling is based, and also the way that you also mentioned the way that it's already being used by the white mainstream or co-opted by the white mainstream, how do you think that this ruling will change the public discourse on racism for the better or for the worse? How can activists actually, use this ruling to sort of take the struggle against blackface forward?
I think that despite all the things we've been talking about, that this ruling can work positively in fighting blackface in the Netherlands. So I think it can help in the struggle for the disappearance of blackface at school. Although I don't think it will lead to the disappearance of blackface, I think it will lead to a change or to something, they won't be painted black. But I think that it is important as a sign to black people in the Netherlands that, that there is something going on, that they can also make use of the law, although you are going to be framed. But so far, for the Netherlands, this is a major step. This is no revolution, though. This fits very much within a particular way to frame black people, to think about what is society in a way that excludes them. But I do think that in our conversations with schools, for instance, that I feel that we are much stronger at the moment. How will this change the plight of black people in the Netherlands? No, I don't know.
Also, you were sorry.
I'm sorry. That I can see obviously that this court case and everything that's happening here can do something about or against Zwarte Piet, which is good because it's still racist. I'm just wondering how can we, because for me at least, me being active in amongst other things, anti-racism work, it's not just about Zwarte Piet. So then, how can this? That's a question that I'm asking all of you. How can this help in that broader sense instead of just Zwarte Piet? Because I mean, I can tell you, in between now and 10 years or something, there will be no more Zwarte Piet because society will just make it into this okay, black people were hurt and we're not doing that to them anymore because we're so nice. That's gonna happen anyways. But how is this then gonna help battling racism? I'm wondering how this. Do you have any ideas about this, Egbert, perhaps, or?
I'm not very hopeful when it comes to this ruling. I can see, I can understand where Patricia's coming from, because it strengthens your position with this, with the school. But yeah, I share Ramona's concerns when we look at it in the broader context, because this case or this ruling, it sets a precedence. So for me, it reaffirms again that narrative that black people need to frame it in the language of distress. So it personalizes racism. It makes it it makes it again a personal affair that we have to seem to overcome, or it creates a situation where either black people need to overcome racism by doing some internal work, or having white people come and save us. So it's, in that broader sense, I don't feel like this has given us any tool to work with, because it basically has strengthened the narrative that's already in place.
I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. I think what it can do, and Patricia also already mentioned it, is mobilize people. But I think then it's up, especially black people and people of color, and sort of maybe signals that they can take up position, take up space in public space to talk about institutional racism. But then it's up to them themselves, because white mainstream has its own sort of agenda, to change the terms of the conversation, change the terms of the discourse, to go deeper and to widen the conversation, to not just talk about feeling insulted or feeling hurt, but actually going to the numbers and going, demanding actual redress for institutional racism that's going on in the educational system, in the judicial system, and a labor market, just to name a few. But it's going to be work that activists themselves are going to have to do. And right now, it's unclear to me. Well, that's not a picture that I'm too hopeful about, even though we are having this conversation now. I'm not sure to what extent people, and I say people, I mean activists, are seeing through, the way that this is being framed.
But I think that this court ruling is happening at the moment that other things are happening. So the fact that the commemoration of the abolition of Dutch slavery was disturbed by black youth, I think is very significant. Their message is, we can say a lot about that, but the fact that they disturbed that is a different thing from what was going on so far. It means that they're not buying into the politics of discipline and of politeness that is imposed onto them. And I think, the things that are happening around the decision and the movement on Zwarte Piet are important as well.
Ramona, can you speak on that as well? Any thoughts as to how to leverage, or in what kind of moment are we in as a movement? And how can we maybe basically to give the question back to you that you posed? Do you have any thoughts yourself?
I'm not sure if there's a movement, to be honest. There are several movements, but I think it is that we need to. This is what I think. We need to look at everything that's happening, and also with this court case, the framing and stuff, and see how that framing is not working for us, but actually against us, and work with that. And I sometimes feel like people, not all people, but are too a little bit too enthusiastic when they think that they got something, and then I'm like, well, yeah, we didn't really get anything, and then suddenly people get mad at me, which is, you can be mad at me, which is fine, but we were actually talking about something else, right? So we need to kind of keep each other sharp on what is actually happening and what that implicates and what that means, instead of just being happy with the crumbs, like we said before. I think that could be a starting point, and I think it's also important in every battle and every social justice, whatever, to look at intersectionality, and just to be we cannot battle racism with ableism or homophobia or stuff like that. We really need to look closely at what we're doing and how all of these oppressions are affecting each other, and that we can't just pick out one and think that you can just view that as if it's something completely else and all alone, and not all of this stuff is connected. That's me.
Thank you for making that point. That's really important. Really very important. Egbert, do you have any maybe final thoughts on the ruling, what it means, what its implications might be, and that kind of stuff?
Well, I just have a few things to say. I thought the ruling was it came at a very opportune moment. So, like I think it was 2 months ago or last month, um, Frans Timmermans, a minister, gave this really kind of like lively speech um, in which he
Minister for
railed
Foreign
against,
Affairs.
yeah, so, yeah, foreign affairs minister, in which he railed against racism, knowing that the UN working group was going to investigate anti-black racism in the Netherlands. So for me, it was like a convergence of interests. To me, the court could not have made any other decision without looking foolish or without reaffirming the findings of the UN working group. And as far as things that next steps that we can take, I would suggest contesting the equal treatment law. Because people of color, black people, need to realize that these laws were written by white men, white middle-aged, able-bodied men. And they reasoned from their own position. So we need to bring the lived reality of racism into the legal system if we are going to move anything forward.
Hi everybody, we just had a server error. I'm not sure if Egbert can join us.
I'm back.
Patricia, you're back too, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. I hope Egbert can come back as well. Let me see if I...
Maybe Patricia can do her ending words or.
Yeah.
Or Ramona.
Well, I've said what I wanted to say about intersectionality and stuff, and being critical doesn't mean being a spoiling, or just trying to be.
Party pooper.
Yeah. So that was it for me. So Patricia, you can.
Yeah, exactly. Patricia, maybe your final... Actually, I have a question before you make your final remarks. Because you were at the press conference where the UN Working Group presented their findings.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you were. Oh, sorry. I thought you were invited.
I was invited to meet with the group.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It was a consultation with civil society, and they invited me to speak there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Egbert has joined us now. Maybe we can. I'm curious. Maybe I don't know if to what extent you can share anything about that meeting and about what you think that their research, their report, to what extent it can sort of what the impact will be of that intervention. Even kijken. Egbert, will you finish your... we were interrupted by error. Can you finish your final remarks?
Yeah, I think we need to really contest the equal treatment law and look at how it's phrased and yeah, just say that it does not protect black people or people of color.
Yeah. So be critical and also be critical and also contest the laws that activists are actually using in their fight against racism. Because here we have definitely seen how those laws can be used against you. Patricia, just briefly before we finish up, you were invited to a consultation for the UN working group. They were interested in the perspectives of different types of activists, I think, who are fighting against racism in the Netherlands. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about, because as Egbert said, the ruling was presented a day before the press conference of the UN working group headed by Vereen Shepherd, where they actually did come to the conclusion that the Netherlands has a huge issue with institutional racism in different areas. Can you tell us what your thoughts are on what the impact might be of that intervention by the UN?
Well, first, the group is headed now by Mireille Fanon,
Okay.
not by Vereen Shepherd anymore. But Shepherd is also a member of it. I think the presence of the group is very important here because it is not only about Zwarte Piet, because it is an insistence on the fact of structural racism and institutional racism in this country. So the issues that have been raised before are again raised by them and researched, and they ask, so they have been consulting with several sectors of the society about racial profiling, segregation in the labor market, in the housing market, etc., etc. So I think it is very important to have a body outside of the Netherlands that comes in to give weight to the voices that have been arguing this here for so long. It shouldn't be necessary. It is again a manifestation that there is structural racism, that these voices have systematically not been heard. But the fact their presence makes activists stronger and forces the government to address these issues. You know, what will happen from here on? Of course, a lot of denial, a lot of window dressing, but it is again important for activists and for the community as a whole to see there is somebody out there. So there is movement here amongst black people and people of color, especially the youth, and I think this is a difference, at least from my experience, from the last 20 years that I've been living in this country, and this is very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ramona Snow, Patricia Schor, and Egbert Alejandro Martina for sharing your thoughts on this ruling on Zwarte Piet in Amsterdam, but also what kind of moment we're in right now in the Netherlands when it comes to the public debate on racism, on institutional racism, and also the place activists, anti-racist activists are at in their struggle against it. I think that it's important to have these types of questions, like every one of you has just said. It's important to remain critical and to remain critical of the way that, you know, these issues are being framed in the public debate, but also amongst each other, amongst ourselves, and to keep each other sharp, as Ramona said, to be intersectional and to look at the tools that we're using in that struggle, as Egbert said, using sort of laws that have not been designed with black people in mind, but being strategic about that. Thank you so much. I hope that we can do this another time, and that it'll be of use to people listening or viewing this.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.